embarrassed to admit this, but this will be my third studio makeover in just over 2 years. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Marianne. I'm an artist and educator, and apparently I'm also a studio makeoverer. And in this video, I will be walking you through the process of making over my studio space again. But first, let's talk about how we got here. So my first studio space makeover was in 2022, and I actually really loved it. All of my walls were painted White Dove by Benjamin Moore, which is the color that I have throughout my entire house. Everything was super airy and light. I had white shelves, white drawer units, and a very pale desk. But when you combine it with my incredibly intense studio lighting that has been set up to allow me to paint at any time during the day or night, you get a lot of reflection. Fortunately, or unfortunately, however you choose to look at it, my cheap white IKEA shelves were actually pulling out from the wall and were in danger of fully collapsing. So it gave me the opportunity or excuse to start over. Now, around that time, the dark and moody trend was starting to emerge on both Instagram and Pinterest, and I thought, ooh, I want to do that. It just looks so pretty in all the photos, so I decided to go for it. So I decided on wrought iron, which is a lovely deep charcoal by Benjamin Moore, and I went with a nice flat matte paint color, which I thought would provide a beautiful filming backdrop. I can safely say that after 1 year of living and working in this space, that dark and moody is not for me. I found that this darker color made my space feel heavier as opposed to cozier, which is what I was going for. So light and white was too bright, and dark and moody was too heavy. So this time I'm aiming for the best qualities of both. For this makeover, I am drawing inspiration from the light academia trend. Light academia in a design context displays a love for books, art, and intellectual pursuits. But unlike dark academia, which is moody and serious, light academia is typically expressed through a soft color palette and a happier, romanticized view of scholarly life. I am obsessed with learning, and I love that light academia showcases that. Two of my great passions are learning more about painting and the natural world, and naturally, I do the two together. I think that one of the most important things about any creative space is that it feels authentic to who you are. Any space where you are creating needs to feel like an extension of your soul. And of course, functionality is always your first priority, but your space should also inspire you to make you want to create things, okay? Let's do this. Since I was under the impression that my original color, White Dove, was too bright, I tested out several darker off-whites, lived with them for a week, and ultimately decided on Dove Wing. Dove Wing is a shade darker than White Dove, and I thought it would be absolutely perfect. But because I wanted to be 100% sure, I decided to paint only 2 of my studio walls, live with it, then paint over the dark wall once I knew I had the right color. Armed with paint and optimism, I went to work, covering up the White Dove and feeling pretty good about my color selection. I was so excited that I kept painting in the evening after my kids had gone to bed just to get it all done, only to realize... So I'm definitely having some remorse over doing this whole makeover. Yup, that's right. I hated it. Despite being encouraged by the good people of Instagram who were following along in my stories just to live with it for a few more days, the next day I walked into the room and immediately felt unhappy. So I went right back to the paint store, picked up a gallon of White Dove, and painted over the whole thing. The sense of relief was instant, so I knew in my gut that it was the right move. Of course, this now meant that I would have to address the issue of softening the studio lighting to reduce the glare. So I spent some time doing some research on lighting until I felt confident that the problem was solvable. I'll explain my findings later in the video. Then it was time to take everything down, pack it all away into boxes, take down the shelf, remove the brackets, patch over the holes, and paint over the wrought iron. Getting rid of the dark and moody authentically felt like lifting a weight off of my shoulders. It took 3 coats of paint to fully eliminate the charcoal, and each layer made me happier and happier. Next, I had to decide where I wanted to put the shelves, so I borrowed a laser level and marked where they could go. Because this space is also my filming set for YouTube and my courses, once the tape was up, I ran screen tests to see how the shelves would look. I didn't stage this or even bother to do my hair and makeup, so you can see how tired I am in real life, but this is the process. It's messy, but effective.
Blah, 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 blah.
Full disclosure here, I didn't actually feel confident about installing the new brackets myself, particularly since it was my terrible DIY job that led to my original shelves collapsing. So after I finished taping where the shelves would go, I grabbed my closet door and vacated the studio. While I painted the door, my amazing contractor, who I've worked with for years, came in and did a professional installation of the brackets and curtain rod to ensure everything was secure and level. He has no interest in being on YouTube, so out of respect, I didn't film him doing it. But the next day, when I hung the curtains and placed the shelves on the brackets, I admittedly teared up because it was starting to feel like home again. With the closet door back in place, it was finally time to unpack all my stuff and prepare to style the shelves. While I'm doing that, I'd like to take the opportunity to talk about this video's sponsor, Skillshare. Like all of you, I wear many hats. I'm my own photographer, videographer, web developer, social media manager, and so on. All of these tasks require a certain set of skills, and it can be overwhelming regardless of whether you're a beginner or more seasoned. Enter Skillshare. Skillshare is a learning platform designed for creatives by creatives, and there is a class for all those additional roles, such as learning to edit your content or developing an email list. I've been personally struggling with productivity, so I've been working my way through Ali Abdal's Productivity Masterclass, and oh my goodness, it is hands down the most valuable and concise class I've ever taken. In less than 2 hours total, he has given me so many strategies that I have already started to implement into my routine. If you'd like to see what I'm raving about, the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. If you do nothing else but take this productivity masterclass as part of your trial, I promise you will not regret it. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to styling the shelves. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that my inspiration for this makeover was light academia. Academia as a design trend celebrates intellectual pursuits and a lifestyle of learning. But within that broad definition are various subcategories. There's dark academia, which is moody and gothic, green academia, which is entirely focused on nature, and light academia, which is soft and cheerful. As a kid, I dreamed of becoming a professor, mostly because I loved books and I romanticized the idea of library research and leather briefcases. Obviously, I took a different route in life, but this redesign sort of pays tribute to that dream through antiques, books, and a showcase of my current areas of study as a painter of flowers, birds, landscapes, and still life. Now, as I was styling the shelves, something was just feeling off, and I couldn't figure out why. It was feeling both too cluttered and like there was too much negative space above my items. I was starting to get pretty frustrated, but the reason why didn't become clear until I started to add items to the second shelf. Everything on that shelf looked squished, and that's when I realized I had put it up too high. Even though at this point I was tired and I just wanted the makeover to be done with, I decided I had to see it through and bump it down by about 3.5 inches so that it was only 16 inches above the bottom shelf. So Steve the Wonder Contractor came back, lowered the shelf, and we both agreed it looked way better with the adjustment. If there's one thing I've learned from all these makeovers is that it's better to fix things while you've still got momentum. The shelf styling went much better this time. I used a palette of nature-inspired vintage colors, mostly greens, browns, grays, and golds. And this time, I didn't crowd the items. Even though this is a working shelf and I need my supplies readily available, I don't like clutter, and my materials just needed some more breathing room. I am so much happier with the overall look and function of these shelves, but I'll probably still keep moving things around on them because it's a studio and it has to be flexible. From there, it was time to finish things up with some final touches, including bringing back my easels, adding some more plants, and tidying up leftover supplies and materials. Which brings us to here. Welcome to the new studio look. I can't even tell you how thrilled I am because this space finally feels like home. This entire room is less than 100 square feet, but within this, I still have the space and the ability to set up larger scale paintings, smaller scale paintings, sketchbooks, and more. This video also makes it appear as if everything happened really quickly, but the truth is that the first paint samples went up on the wall almost 5 months ago, and I've been working on it slowly ever since. Now, in case you're wondering where I keep all of my art supplies like my paints or my sketchbooks or mediums, those are all tucked away in various places throughout the studio, like my art cart, in the drawers of my desk, and in the cabinet on the wall. There's also a few other things I haven't quite gotten around to yet, such as creating a canvas storage system. Those are all currently leaned up against the wall, and that works for now. And other things, such as the fact that the grasses behind me are currently being displayed in an old tripod box because I haven't found a vase yet. But now I want to talk about lighting. Now, I'm going to be releasing a video entirely dedicated to lighting and going into the technicalities of it, things like your CRI and your color temperature, but I did want to address the issue of glare in a white workspace. The solution to solving the glare on the white walls was painfully simple. I use LED tube lights from a company called Waveform, and when I ordered the lights, it came with 4 in a pack, so that's what I put into my fixture. It turns out that that was absolute overkill. Because I only have 1 overhead light in this space, putting all 4 into one fixture essentially turned them into a concentrated floodlight. But for a quick, easy, and non-invasive solution, I simply removed 2 of the lights and bought this cheap diffusion cloth from Amazon. So now whenever I need to adjust or soften the lighting in my space, all I need to do is add or subtract some light bulbs and clip this diffusion cloth on. I'm just using binder clips here, and depending on how tight or loose I stretch it across, I can alter the level of diffusion, essentially creating a giant softbox on my ceiling. The solution was, in fact, that simple. There is so much more I want to tell you about lighting an art studio, but I'm going to save it for a future video, so make sure you hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss it. So now that I've made over this space 3 times, there are 3 pieces of advice that I would give anyone looking to make over their studio space. Number 1, plants and lighting make a huge difference on your workspace. It doesn't matter if you have a designated art studio like this, or if you're working out of a corner of your bedroom or at the kitchen table. Having a nice plant and improving your lighting makes a huge difference. Number 2, you want to think about the vibe. The light academia vibe of this space is perfect for me, but it's not right for everyone. Maybe you're a minimalist, or a maximalist, or maybe you're kind of spooky. You just need to make sure that your space feels like a reflection of who you are. Adding little details like that are so important because it's going to make you want to work. And my third and final piece of advice is that it's okay for things to change. Your space should be a reflection of who you are and where you want to go, not where you've been. Quick story, near the end of this makeover, my friend Laura came over. While she was here, I was showing her pictures of how the studio used to look, and I was lamenting to her, like, why did I paint the wall dark? What was I thinking? And she looked at me and said, Marianne, it doesn't look that bad. It's just not who you are anymore. Your tastes have evolved, and you shouldn't apologize for growth. I feel like I want that on a t-shirt. So whoever out there needed to hear that you should not apologize for growth, there it is. As for me, I am so ready to pick up the brush and get back to painting. So I'd like to thank you for watching. And if you'd like to check out any of my other studio tours and makeovers, they are linked above. I would also love if you would connect with me on social media. And I've provided some freebies, such as some ebooks on acrylic and oil painting in the description below. Keep making your life beautiful, and I'll see you in the next video.